Welcome to Soundbreaker. In today's episode, we're talking to Tris Williams, who is the founder and CEO of The Rights, or The Rights Inc. Thank you for joining us today. For our listeners who might not be familiar with you, could you please introduce yourself and tell us just a little bit before we really dive into it and gets more interesting?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Bob. And
My
nice to
pleasure.
meet you.
Likewise.
Trace Williams. I've spent my career in the music business, have a huge passion for music. I play music. I studied music in college and went to law school actually early aughts. Have been a lawyer for nearly 20 years now. And I have mostly been focused on transactional law, so negotiating deals, working out sort of solutions between parties to come to an agreement. And a big part of that in the last sort of decade or so has been around licensing and music licensing. I did, right before I started The Rights, I did almost 10 years at iHeartMedia as the head of business affairs there. And that's really kind of where the inspiration for The Rights came in.
Amazing. I mean, listen, one of the biggest hurdles for artists and new labels and new distributors, anybody new, is always all the legal stuff that comes with it. That could be extremely costly and confusing. I mean, I remember myself when I started many moons ago. Well, I shouldn't. I don't want to make myself old on camera now. But when I started my record label, it was a bit of a hurdle, contracts, to read them and understanding the lingo, what to do, what not to do, if this is the right lawyer or lawyer getting back and forth and just get us paying billing fees and all of that.
No doubt.
Tris, before we dive into it, is it possible to take us back a bit? What really got you inspired? Because you went to college, obviously, for music, and then you went to law school for music. What got you started back in early teenage years, like when you were younger? Who inspired? Was it somebody in the family, your mom, your dad, or a friend, or just passion, love for music?
Yeah, no, great question. Passion and love for music, I think early on, when I was a kid growing up in church and performing in church, and then that sort of went into being in the band in school. I played saxophone. So you had a great group of friends around that experience. Actually, before I went to college, got involved in a band that was sort of on the up and up. We all went to college together. So we and then during college, toured and played in some of the local venues there. So always sort of been involved in music. When I was in the band, I was kind of the guy that booked the gigs and did the business part of it. So I sort of fell into that business role for the band. Then after college, I moved to New York City, wanted to learn more about the real music business.
Yeah.
And ended up going to law school at the encouragement of a mentor of mine, a guy named Wade Leake, who's still at Sony Music, is one of the top lawyers there. Glad I did. I went to Brooklyn Law School at night. I kept my feet in the game, working for a company called Zamba. Some of the folks, the old schoolers out there, will remember Zamba's Jive Records and Britney Spears and all the sort of early aughts. Exactly. So had a great experience working there. Like I said, I went to law school at night during that time and have kind of been at it ever since. But yeah, I mean, I mentioned one mentor, I guess I would say early on, you just having great mentors, and the band director at the school that I went to, I grew up in Atlanta. Yeah. And, he just really sort of pushed me and encouraged me from the very beginning, and ended up really sort of excelling at band, and playing the sax, and made that sort of the key part of my life. Enjoyed practicing, which if you're a musician, you kind of have to enjoy that to get good. It was hard to practice, 3, 4, 5 hours a day, but it was sort of the foundation that carried me in through college and even really law school, that sort of discipline of practicing and playing music. A little bit different when it's more reading and writing papers. But
Yes.
took that same discipline with me through my whole education career, and I think working while I was going to law school was a key part of sort of accelerating my career. When I got out of law school, I basically already had a job waiting for me, and
Great.
moved right into it.
It's funny how things pivot, from being a musician to get involved in the business side of it, and how the whole thing just, took its own path.
No doubt. Yeah, it was really that, still continues to this day, just passion for music. And, um, I'm involved in philanthropy that's really all about supporting music causes, and big believer in the power of music, bringing people out of unfortunate situations, helping mental
Yes.
health,
Yes.
improving overall education. A lot of that, sort of played out in my life too.
Yes. Music really has major, major effect in mental health, helping people. I think
No
really,
doubt.
yes, major, major positive impact on that area. And I'm big supportive of it. Big supportive of it. Um, Tris, let's talk about Thumbplay's journey, which you really, went through the whole thing till it got sold to Clear Channel. And Clear
Yeah.
Channel, was one of the biggest, or the biggest even company out there,
Yep.
conglomerate that literally followed every radio station out there and became the leading for all pop music and all kind of genre, hip hop and all of that, and there's under their belt and the stations that they own.
No doubt.
If you, yeah, give us some light on that one and your journey, and how did it really kind of shape, your future roles in the business?
Sure. Yeah. So Thumbplay was a startup. When I was hired to be their general counsel, the first business that we were pursuing was ringtones. So sort of dating myself, if you remember ringtones.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Well, back memories.
Yes, exactly. You had to buy a song to
Yes.
play when the phone rang. So we had deals with all the major labels, and
That was
and
big
it
business back then.
was a big
At
business. Yeah,
one
it
time,
was.
major business.
It
Yes.
was. It
Some
was.
people
We
cleaned house with it.
No doubt, yeah, including really Thumbplay. I mean, we were one of the top distributors of ringtones, that what we called off deck, meaning we weren't
Yeah.
Verizon or AT&T. We were a third party seller of ringtones, and so, but then, in '08, between the financial crisis and the release of the first iPhone,
Yeah.
really sort of, I think, if you go back and look at history, maybe one of the most precipitous declines of a business in music history for sure was,
Hmm.
when ringtones, nobody needed ringtones anymore. Everybody was getting a
No.
smartphone. You can play whatever song you want when the phone rang. We actually pivoted our business into an on-demand streaming service, and we're one of the first in the
Hmm.
U.S.
Yeah.
Alongside, at that time, it was Rhapsody, a company called Mog that became Beats, RDO. I think all of us ended up getting swallowed up by bigger companies. Yeah, at that time in the radio industry, Pandora was making inroads, and they were selling to the same advertisers that radio was selling to, and they called themselves radio. And if you think about what radio is, I mean, what is radio? Radio is really it's a technology.
Yeah.
It's a technology that can, over the airwaves, FM and AM, deliver
Correct.
audio. And actually, that term was kind of co-opted by folks like Pandora to actually implicate more just passive listening, non-on-demand listening, or what,
Hmm. Hmm.
in the legal terms, non-interactive streaming. And so, like I said, it was actually Clear Channel changed its name to iHeart, by the way, during the time that I was there. So, yes, it was called Clear Channel in 2011 when Thumbplay was acquired, but eventually became iHeartMedia. And that was sort of right when we were acquired, was the time when Bob Pittman was coming into the company. If you know Bob, legendary media executive, founder of MTV, one of the smartest business people that I've ever met. Had the opportunity to work with him and build the new iHeart. Take Clear Channel from like you said, the largest radio
Yes.
company into a multimedia digital first company. Did all the licensing for that. We
When was that?
relaunched
What year was that? What year was that? When
2011. Yeah, so we
2011.
we were acquired in March of 2011. By September of 2011, we celebrated the relaunch of iHeartRadio with the first ever iHeartRadio Music Festival. Actually, that was the intention of the festival, was to celebrate the relaunch of the service, which was obviously the digital home for the radio stations, If you live in
Yes.
New York City, you know Z100, one of the top radio stations in the country.
So you guys were the first one, pretty much, basically, kind of dive into or jump into the digital world of radio stations.
Yeah, I mean, we had a digital presence
Yeah.
even before the acquisition of Thumbplay, but it was very much like just the radio stations, just the streaming of the radio
Yes.
stations. We added what we called custom radio, which is really like the Pandora-like feature.
hmm Yeah.
Pick your artist or pick your song, and we'll create a radio station for you. You know, no DJs, just streaming, passive listening. And so we relaunched the service with that new feature in September of 2011.
Wow.
In 14, I believe it was, we changed the name of the company from Clear Channel to iHeartMedia, really to acknowledge the depth of the digital capabilities of the company. That was during my time there. And then in, I think, 2019, we acquired a company called Stuff Media that was sort of I would say the first catalyst for change at the company was the acquisition of Thumbplay and the implementation of the new custom radio feature. I'd say the second sort of key inflection point for the company was the acquisition of Stuff Media, which is one of the top podcast producers, and really pivoted our business into going really all in on podcasts, which continues today. You know, that's really a big focus
Yes.
of iHeart. Basically on-demand radio. You know, you have personality-driven, on-demand talk radio, I guess I would say. Obviously, there's some music shows out there, but a lot of what you listen to on podcasts is people talking, which is a lot of the reason that you listen to radio to begin with. You know, you want Bob
Yes.
Pittman always talks about that companionship. And, you know, driving to work with somebody in the car next to you, who is that? Well, if you live in California, it might be Elvis or Ryan Seacrest. And if you live in New York City area, it might be Elvis Duran, you know, and those are your companions as you drive to work. And it's so true. You know, it's you're part of the conversation with radio. I think that's sort
Yes.
of the key thing. So, you know, it's a really interesting time and really interesting to be part of, and had the opportunity to work really hand in hand with Bob Pittman and the team over there, John Sykes, Tom Pullman, et cetera. Now I think they're up to the 16th iHeartRadio Music Festival at this point. It's been
Yeah.
just announced for September. You know, worked on events during that time, got in deep with that. But anyway, that was the inflection point was, as you mentioned, that sort of acquisition of Thumbplay by then Clear Channel to change the company. It was
And
fun
you
to be part
worked
of.
with them. You were in a part of the business, or you led the business affair
I did.
department. Yeah.
Yeah, it basically
Which,
created it. It was the legal function at iHeart at that time when I came in was really focused on radio issues, you know, tower leases,
yeah.
DJ contracts, and then we really brought in a licensing function. So dealing with really sort of all music industry relations. I say licensing, you know, artist appearance contracts, event agreements, um, uh, even advertiser sponsorship agreements, you know, became a big part of the job. But that it was a new function for the company.
Which led you to start your own, The Rights Inc.
For sure. Yeah, I think that
Yes.
experience, the main sort of inspiration for the experience for the rights was that time at iHeart where we were doing a lot of the licensing that we were doing is sort of lower level. You know,
hmm
the Billie Eilish is showing up in the studio with Elvis Duran, for example, and we want to
hmm
create a piece that we distribute across social. And what are you going to put in there for music? You need to have some Billie Eilish music in there, and that required what's called a sync license, synchronization license, and
Correct.
those were not high dollar licenses, but they took just as much time to
Yes.
clear as an advertiser license.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, before we dive into The Rights Inc. and tell us all about it and, all the involvement, can we talk about just now, what's your opinion or your experience tells you by working with iHeartRadio and all of that? How do you envision the future of radio and streaming platforms? Because digital radio, this regular radio still exists, obviously, and streaming platforms. I mean, what's the future for? I mean, there's a lot of new entrepreneurs want to get into the business, and it's like, okay, which direction should I take? Is this the end of a new beginning, or what are we doing? Please,
Yeah, I think we're in a really interesting time.
right now, yes.
right now, yeah, I think the transition from traditional radio to what's next is in progress.
Yeah.
We sort of haven't landed on our feet yet on what that is. I think that there's always going to be a demand for both passive listening and companionship. People sort of almost developing a relationship with their favorite personality that they listen to every day.
Mhm.
I would say radio sort of had the original influencer network. If you think about what DJs do, they tell people about what's happening around town during the weekend.
Mhm.
They tell people about new products that are coming out in the form of advertising and
Yeah.
endorsements. What's concerts coming in town? What's the hot new song that you should be listening to? You know
Yes.
that there's still a need for that. I think social media, which iHeart really has been a big part of, and other radio companies have been a big part of, sort of embrace that as a medium that can be sort of used for that same purpose. Reaching
Mhm.
your audience. So, there's some interesting things happening. There's a company out there called Station Head. My friend
Mhm.
Ryan Starr founded. If you're familiar with Station Head, sort of like an on-demand, or sort of like not even on-demand, the next version of what radio could be. It's digital, it's celebrity-led. If you're an influencer or a celebrity, you can create your own station and reach your own audience that way. It's free. I think that's a big part of radio, is that you don't have to pay for it. It's free. You just have to have the device that picks up the signal, or now, an internet connection.
Mhm.
So I think that there's a lot of opportunity for companies like that to sort of set the new standard of what is radio, that passive listening / companionship experience. I think people still crave that.
Do you think the younger generations, the really younger generations, I would say the teens, I feel like they're a little bit too bored from the regular radio stations, normal, whether it's free or DSP, if you're part if they have a membership with Apple or Deezer or Spotify or Amazon. It feels to me that's not enough for them just to listen to a song. Maybe people over a certain age, I would say yes, but a lot of the younger generation, which they're going to set the trend, I think, of how music going to be consumed in the future or in the near future. Not really, we're not far from it. The same way when it went from physical to digital, and digital was the new trend, you know, to download, then stream, and just having it on your phone is no longer. You need, big stereo system and all of that, and everything is in the palm of your hand. Wherever you are, you're working out, you're walking, you're doing something, you're writing an article, or you're studying, and you're in the zone. So, what do you think the new trend that's going to get set by the younger listeners? And this is the generation really who kind of consume a lot of that music.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still, going back to the influencer phenomenon. They find people that they like to pay attention to. I have little kids, a couple of them are sort of in the preteen zone. And it's interesting. I find, obviously they want to watch YouTube and chat with their friends, and they always want to be connected. At the same time, we hop in the car and they want to turn on Z100. They
Hmm.
like that is that sort of central place where all their friends are listening to it too when they ride around with their parents, and they want to go to the Jingle Ball. Still, I think what is a company like iHeart becoming known for? As much their events and their social media presence,
Hmm.
where their influencers live.
Hmm.
As the traditional radio business. So I think that sort of scarcity of frequencies, really, like how do you reach people, all like what is the new sort of mass media?
Hmm.
It's Mr. Beast, and it's influencers like that they have that companionship with them. And I think that does translate into the audio medium as well. You can't always be watching. Sometimes you have to be listening. And so I think there is an opportunity for that. Um, I mentioned Station Head and services like that. That sort of, if you're a celebrity, you can have a station on there. It brings that audience into that medium. And I
Hmm.
think that young people coalescing around a channel is still a viable opportunity. And not, like I said, it's not yet totally figured out. I think that we're sort of in a transition period for that.
Yes, Correct, correct. You don't think, from what I've been seeing and I feel, especially the growth of video games, online games,
Sure.
and all of that, and this really kind of surpassed the music industry.
Yep.
And games, part of it is the game and the experience that you in that metaverse world, like Roblox and all of this. You kind of just get into a different world. And a lot of it led, and all of it led by music. So music plays a big part in the gaming industry,
Sure.
big part of it, and it's kind of surpassing the actual music industry itself. Um, it feels to me when a lot of these kids into that and the future generation, um, it feels like they're looking for the experience now. Listening to music just the normal way with your ear pods, and that it's not enough anymore. And to me, the introduction of Apple, what do you call it, Pro Vision or Vision Pro, excuse me.
Sure.
It kind of, to me, it's a case study. Obviously, it's not the fun. Nobody wants to walk around with a motorcycle helmet on their head.
Right. It's version
It
one.
feels, yes, yeah, it's kind of a case study to see the reaction and how they want to take it. Because to me, I think it's going to be, this is the future. How, whether it's going to be regular sunglasses like Meta has, Facebook, or I don't know, but it's part of, I think it's all about the experience for the kids, or the
Yeah.
future generation, I should say. All about the experience. So with long live these DSPs, digital streaming platform, I don't know. I mean, nothing lasts forever. You know that.
Yeah.
Nobody thought stores like Tower and FYE and Sam Goody and all of these stores,
Yeah.
Cold Connects and
What's that?
Record Explosion. Yeah, I mean, some kids say, what is that? Yeah,
Yeah.
and nobody thought these are billions of dollars. Big warehouses, trucking companies, factories, and all
No
of that
doubt.
connected all together, just vanished. Not even a trace of it anymore. How when things evolve and you go forward and technology gets involved, and obviously things kind of disappears. Would DSP one day become part of history? Like, oh yeah, streaming platform used to pay $10 a month or whatever, $8 or $12 or $11.99, and used to listen to your music. It feels like all of these things kind of controlled, and I think now we're entering an era where freedom. It's all about artists get their power back. Well, we are in charge. It's our music, our talent. We, the talented people, we write it. We want to have control of our destiny, control of our fans, and interact with our fans and monetize on it, and
No
let our
doubt.
fans also monetize on it with us.
Yeah. No, for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, it's interesting that, like I said, I think that we are in this sort of transition period. You
Yes.
just saw
Yes.
Spotify raise their prices. They're talking about another
Yes.
tier.
What
You
is it?
see that.
$11.99 now?
I'm not even sure,
Yeah.
but it's not 9.99 anymore.
No.
The
No.
prices are going up. They're introducing a premium tier.
Hmm.
Spotify's making a big deal about their audiobook and podcast offerings and the bundle there, and how that sort of shakes out will be really interesting. Sort of
Hmm.
see music versus non-music audio experiences coming in and almost competing with each other. I do think sort of fan engagement is a big part of what the future is.
Yes.
You know, People want to be part of a club
Hmm.
or a
Hmm.
tribe. You sort of
Hmm.
that was going back to radio, that was always sort of the idea with formats in radio, top 40
Hmm.
country, et cetera, sort of the original targeting, and I think you're seeing people coalesce around those experiences like in Roblox. You see some games in Roblox are incredibly popular and, millions and millions of people are using it every day versus
Yeah.
there's experiences in Roblox that are essentially nascent.
Yeah.
People are sort of picking where they want to be with their friends, and I think, like I said, I think we're sort of in a transition period around that. And not to get too far ahead of the interview, but, the rights is sort of set up nicely to participate in that, really. As a fan, how do you engage with an artist in a way, anybody can be a creator now. There
Correct.
are technology tools that allow,
It's
between
available for everybody,
it's
and it's
available for
cheap, and
everybody
it's out
between
there. Yeah.
between AI and the sort of creator tools that are built into your
Yes.
to your phone. You have the ability to create anytime, any place. if you want to use music in those creations, that's pretty complicated right now. Only
Yes.
the sort of elite creators are able to access real music for their creations, and the rights is making that more accessible for people. That's a big part of our mission.
Well, that's what we want to talk about, the Rights Inc. and what impact it have and how does it empower artists in at a times like this, as you said, where we are transitioning. We in it. What direction we don't know, but we're transitioning, and artists kind of know about it and they want to be part of that future. And how does the Rights Inc. come in and say, hey, you know what? We are the future. We're here to help you. We're here. Please.
Yeah, so like I said, it's making music licensing more accessible, simplifying it. Right now, to license a piece of music, of popular music, just a quick stat, the average Hot 100 song or song that appears in the Hot 100 really popular song has six different co-writers on it. I mean, six different music publishers plus the record label that owns it. So that's an average of
Because it
seven.
has different samples from different famous songs out
Sometimes
there.
samples, and a lot of times it's just co-writers. People are writing music together and creating, collaborating to create music more than ever, especially the most popular songs. You have a producer, you have an artist, you have multiple artists, you have a songwriter you might work with. You're seeing that creates a very complex licensing picture that
Hmm.
the rights is basically an exchange. It's built on top of a database of music ownership information. We have
Hmm.
about 15 million songs in our database that have 100% ownership information represented, meaning we know who
Wow.
the owners are. And in fact, not just know who the company owners are, but we actually know who the people are at those companies that you need to contact to get the rights.
Very
Uh,
interesting. What if an artist come in and say, hey, I like a bunch of these songs and that I don't own, but I want to use these for AI to create a new song for me, and I want to train. I'm going to take these five songs or one song maybe, because sometimes it could be one song or a bunch of songs in the same genre, and put it in one of these platforms that you can it does machine training, where machine learning, actually ML, and you put the music in and it does what it needs to do, and it gives you a brand new track base kind of, it has that same feeling with the same genre, and you write a song to it. So in something like this, obviously the artists need to be compensated, the writers need to be compensated, the composers, whoever involved. Is that possible to do something like this with your platform, as artists now becoming more savvy using technology? And obviously AI is not a replacement tool. Everybody knows it's more of an enhancement tool. So it's being used for the good of that. So still artists could benefit and could, monetize on their music that's out there already and being used to learn from.
Yeah, so it's interesting. We're definitely seeing a trend
Hmm.
towards sort of ethical AI, if you will. You
Yeah.
hear that term a lot,
Yeah.
which is really about,
Yes.
like you said, compensating the artist whose
Yes.
music is used to
And
train.
credits. Yes. And give everybody the right proper credits. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think the most popular generative AI services in music and the ones that have raised the most money are not ethical AI. They've essentially basically admitted that they've used the music without permission. And I definitely think that this is one of those instances where the law hasn't quite caught up with what the technology is doing. The smartest lawyers that I know, and my own personal belief, is that if you're using music and you know what music you're using for the training of
Yeah.
the machine learning,
Yeah.
the model,
Yeah.
um, you need to license that. You need to ask permission to do that. There's
Mm.
numerous copyright rights, the right of an exclusive owner of copyright, that are being infringed by not asking permission for that kind of activity. So I do
Hmm.
think that there's an opportunity. We aren't at the rights, we aren't set up at this very moment to in mass license AI models, but it is certainly an application of our database that we're thinking about. We're mostly focused on, I want to use a song or a few songs in my video, my game, my
Yeah.
podcast, my social media post. But that same, I think it really comes from that core of the database of ownership
Hmm.
information, could be used potentially to solicit offers to license hundreds of thousands or millions of songs for AI training.
Mhm.
So I definitely think that's something that's on our radar. We're looking at that.
And the trends is going there. The trend it is,
Trend
because
is
I
going
do
there.
receive, as an owner of catalogs, and I work with a lot of companies, I do get offers for, to license catalogs for that purpose.
No doubt about it. That's
Hmm.
that's definitely what's happening and where it's going. Investors that are investing in those unlicensed AI models should be pretty wary of that. And um, you know, I've got my popcorn out and I'm watching with great interest of what happens with some of these lawsuits.
The Rights Inc. platform, do you get a lot of mostly B2B, or do you get independent artists also to come into the platform for whatever purpose, for usage, as you mentioned, for podcast music, for this, for that?
Yeah, so our strategy at the moment is focused on signing up record labels and publishers to use our workflow tools to process really sort of the low dollar sync license opportunities. So think about student filmmakers, independent filmmakers, local advertisers, podcasters, a lot of those verticals that I talked about, which is really the fastest growing area in sync licensing.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yes.
So we're working with labels and publishers to streamline the process around that and take out as much of the manual work as possible. Just to give an example, as you I'm sure know, many publishers only own a certain portion of songs. So let's
Yes.
say that you're a publisher and you own 10% of a song, and independent filmmaker wants to use that song in a film that they're producing for film festivals.
Absolutely.
Pretty common. A film student, they got to learn how to clear music too. The music
Yes.
industry wants to provide a path for those film students to do the right thing and get the licenses, but you actually have to put somebody on those opportunities as it existed before the rights. You'd have to have somebody respond to a quote request, really hold that licensee's hand through the process. This is what I need from you. Please answer this questionnaire. They process the questionnaire manually. They send a quote back to that licensee. The licensee then says, "Yeah, I'll do that," and it's like $2. If you're a music publisher that has 10% of that song, that means your gross earnings from that opportunity is $25. And from that, you have to pay the writer, which if you're in a 10% admin deal, that means you're going to get a grand total of $2.50 for that opportunity. And for that opportunity, you have to have somebody provide that quote. You then have to have somebody draft a license and send the license, respond to any questions about the license that there might be, then collect the money, by
Hmm.
invoice. No infrastructure exists to help really sort of more automate those types of opportunities. There's not a platform out there that before the rights that would allow users like
Amazing.
that to access those licenses. So
You know what you're doing, Tress? You're pretty much basically empowering the independent. And I think
that's
at a
right.
times like this right now, that platform, the Rights Inc., it's obviously really, really needed at a times like this. And I think you're probably going to shine, because this is the rise of the independent artists, individuals, like I
Yeah,
said, filmmakers, independent,
agreed.
anything to do with creativity in the entertainment business, independent. And
Agreed.
yes, obviously, because it would cost arm and a leg, just the legal fees,
That's
just the
right.
legal, whether they agree or they didn't agree. I remember just the legal fees for lawyers to communicate with management, with writers and publishers and record labels, and the headache of forget it. By the
That's right.
time you want to pay for the song, you have no money left
I,
anymore just to pay for the
I
rights.
can't tell you how many times I've talked to independent filmmakers,
Yes.
heads of the film department at film schools
Yeah.
who say, I tell my team and I tell my students not to try to license music. It's too complicated, it's too
Hmm.
expensive. Here's a couple of production music libraries that you can use.
Hmm.
And now, even more, here's a generative AI service that you can use to generate the song that you want. And if you think about it, those are basically substitutes for what the
Yes.
filmmakers really want. They really want the
Yes.
song that fits best for the scene, that they know and love and have that emotional connection with, but they're stuck using production library music because the real stuff is inaccessible. And so here
Yes.
we're providing an
Beyond.
access point
Yes.
for those people.
Yeah.
Labels and publishers love it because they don't have to do very much work to service those folks. They, even though they're getting $2.50 basically, it was a click of a button for them. That was all they had to do.
Amazing.
So.
Amazing technology. Tress, tell us what's the future for, what do you have in the future for the Rights Inc.? What do you envision for it, and what more you guys are going to be adding? I know
Yeah,
you said one of the things on your radar is the AI
for sure.
kind of learning. Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Right.
looking at that. I think in the near term, we're very focused on
Yeah.
scaling the business that we are pursuing around providing access to music licensing for previously
Yeah.
inaccessible licensees.
Hmm.
We'd like to bring more publishers and labels onto the platform. We think this really only works best when we have a critical mass of labels and publishers on. We have a few
Hmm.
really important users that are using it, but I think until you have basically most of the sort of the majors and the major independents using it, it's going to be manual work for us, frankly. Part of our process is when somebody comes in and requests a quote for a song, if you happen to be requesting a quote for a song for one of our publisher and label partners, then
Yeah.
it's easy. We don't have to do anything for that. But if you're requesting a quote for a song that doesn't have one of those label or artist partners, label or publisher partners using the platform, then we have to do it the old-fashioned way, kind of like what you're suggesting about
Oh,
hire a lawyer to do it. We've automated sending out a letter, processing the responses for those folks. We have a system that tracks that and pushes that through, but
well, you said you have
it's work
15
for
million,
us.
15 million songs, no?
That's right. Yeah, we
Well, you
have
better.
about 60 million songs with some publishing information, but about 15 million with 100% coverage on the publishing
Well, you better
side.
found you better found something out of that 15 million that you guys have access to, because that's a lot. That's
It
really a
is.
lot. If you
It is.
cannot find something, then you're gonna have to try harder.
I mean, if you know about music, you get beyond the first couple million songs, and you're
Yes,
already into the long tail.
yes,
So it's good
absolutely.
coverage on that.
Tress, you worked both sides in established artists and startups. What qualities do you believe and is crucial for the success of music entrepreneurs, and how aspiring entrepreneurs, cultivate them?
Well, I'm going to be a little selfish with this and say,
Please.
mu- music is a complex business.
It is.
It's not a huge business, but it's complicated.
Yes.
One thing, the reasons I actually went to law school early on is learning that aspect of it, understanding copyright and understanding what a music publisher does, what a record label does, what their place is in the industry, what are the challenges that they face. I think that's one of the perspectives that I've brought to the rights is really understanding the challenges of both sides, both licensees and licensors. Early in my career, I worked for companies like Zamba. Later in my career, I worked for licensee companies, big licensee companies like iHeart. And so I think an entrepreneur that really understands the music business is critical. Actually, one of the reasons that I decided to pursue this on my own is being told that by senior people in the music industry. We need more entrepreneurs that really understand the business, because a lot of the entrepreneurs that are trying to create music technology, they
Yeah.
have some understanding, but it's really incomplete. And a lot of the sort of process of starting a company involves just understanding the industry better. So I still think that there's a need for entrepreneurs in the music industry that really understand the business. So, step one, go to school, read the Don Passman book, all you need to know about the music business, read Billboard, read the trades, understand the business, get that sort of deep understanding of the business, write your business plan after you understand that. Because I think if, with a lot of the sort of tech solutions that haven't succeeded in this business are being developed by, tech people and business people that actually come from outside the business. So
Yes.
I think that's sort of one of the critical things is sort of first and foremost understanding the ins and outs of the business.
Interesting. What do you think the trends, well, you mentioned, we talked about one, it's the, interaction between the fans and the artists together. That's really where it's going for. Any other trends that you might think that will define the future of the music business?
Yeah, I mean, well, you mentioned platforms like Roblox, and I think that those are going to be important platforms. I think, you think about sort of MySpace as version one of social media.
Yeah.
It evolved from there. I think you're going to see a lot of that evolution in the game space. And, you
Yeah.
mentioned immersive experiences, metaverse kind of
Yes.
experiences. I think those are
Yes.
on on the horizon as the technology becomes more accessible.
Absolutely.
Love when you mentioned the glasses, because I think, people looking down at their phones is going to be a thing of the past one day. I think that people
Yeah,
are
well, soon. I think
soon.
not one day. I think sooner than we both think.
Yep.
You heard about this Humane little device that came out of this company called Humane?
I'm not familiar with that
And
one.
yeah, they call it kind of a companion. And it reminds me of that movie
Yeah.
where the
Her.
guy falls in love with what's the name of that movie?
Her.
Hers,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Great movie.
It's a little scary,
Scary.
though.
Very scary.
It is.
Yeah.
But the future, I think it's coming to something also part of that. They released it. I think there's two companies, one called Rabbit and one called Humane. And Rabbit, they really call it the companion, where you actually interact about the weather, about what's good restaurants to eat at, a good song to listen to, and what emails, what to send, what not. Like literally having a conversation.
No doubt.
It is a little scary.
It is a little scary. It is a little scary.
Yes.
I think, like any technology, the promise is that it
Yeah.
makes your life easier. There's also probably some downsides to it that we have to sort of come
Yes.
to terms with as a society.
Yes.
But I do think that's likely where it's going, out of the palm of your hand, sort of into your brain almost, really.
Yes. But I don't believe this is really where it's at. I think this is one of the beginning things, but that's not where it's going to be, I think. Because the way we communicate, the way we're going to consume content, that's what I'm learning, since the smartphones came out, whether it's Android or iPhone, iOS. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. I think we're just,
Absolutely.
like I said, we're in that period of transition, and it's hard to even envision what it could be
Yes.
in 10 years. I think we are seeing maybe where it could go in a year or two, but who knows? I mean, but I definitely think, that more immersive experience, I think companionship, I think
Yes.
being with your friends, being with your group in a virtual place, is definitely.
Yeah, being part of it, whether it's a movie, it's a music video, a song, being part of it. I think that's what the whole thing is about.
Fandom, connecting with artists.
Yes.
Yep, absolutely.
Yes. I think they're called experience, like spatial. The way you pronounce it. I don't want to sound ignorant.
Experiential. Yeah.
Yeah, experiential. Yes.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Well, very interesting interview, I have to say, Tres. Really enjoyed it. Extremely
Likewise.
insightful. Definitely was a pleasure having you here. I want to thank you for joining us today. And, this concludes our episode of Soundbreaker. You heard it first here. And don't forget to visit Tres's platform, The Rights Inc. or TheRights.com. Am I right?
TheRights.com. Yep. Come check us out.
TheRights.com. Absolutely much needed platform. Extremely helpful and extremely needed and helpful for a lot of the independent artists out there or independent filmmakers who wants to get involved. Please make sure to follow us on socials and stay tuned to our next episode. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Bob. You too.
My pleasure. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to share the Soundbreaker podcast. And if you are joining us on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time.